Hello there guys and welcome to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Now today the aircraft you are seeing in front of me is the JPL Cessna 152 modification for the standard Asobo Cessna 152. Now this is not real live time and live weather purely because I wanted it to be until I loaded into the sim, and it was probably the most overcast low vis day I've ever seen in the sim. So I decided to switch it up and we're going to go for static weather just so we can actually see what we're doing, and we need VFR conditions for today's flight. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I've been doing my PPL in the UK now for a little while. It's a long process, especially when you have no money. Now, what I thought I'd do is recreate one of my lessons from in real life and convert it into sim practice. Now, the reason we're sitting in the 152 is because that's what I've been flying, and in front of me I have said checklist that I use when flying said aircraft. So I thought it'd be a good learning experience for not just me but for everybody involved really, if we took the 152 out for a flight today. Done some circuits here. We're at Wittman Regional Airport, otherwise known as Oshkosh. The identifier code is Kilo Oscar Sierra Hotel. Very popular airfield in America, as it is where AirVenture is always held, so Oshkosh airfield from the UK. Somewhere I've really wanted to go but never actually had the chance of getting around to it. So here we are. We're in the modification of the 152. As you can probably see, it's got the fairings and all sorts on it, and it's a really nice looking airplane. Now, a lot of you who follow content streamers quite a lot will recognise the repaint. Remember 22318. I follow them on Instagram. They're a lovely couple, and I absolutely adore their repaint of their Cessna 152s. I thought, okay, that'll be a good airplane to start the season off flying with. So we're going to be taking this thing and doing some circuits around Oshkosh here, and it's quite an easy airfield as well. It's a very long runway, so it shouldn't be too hard, and hopefully it's quite easy to navigate once we're in the air. I'm not decided what runway we're going to use yet, or what circuits we're going to use. Obviously the windsock is just in the background there. I'm not really sure which way that is blowing. Looks like it's blowing that way. So the runway that's literally right next to us would probably be a good start, really. So we can literally turn around, taxi out, and follow this taxiway here all the way up, and then depart off that runway. That makes logical sense. So I think we're most likely going to do that. So we can go ahead and jump straight into the cockpit and get started on this exciting journey. Okay, so here we are now sitting back in the cockpit. Now, I did install a mod, but that mod seems to have not worked. Now, the idea of said mod was to make the cockpit a bit darker. So it's like, it changes the cockpit textures, if you like. That doesn't appear to have worked very well. So what I'm going to do is turn my game volume up just a smidge. Just I want you guys to be able to hear everything that I do. I think it's picking up game audio just very quietly. So as you can see by the time of the clock, it's 7:05 in the morning. I thought this would be a good time to fly, given the fact that it's the sun is slightly starting to come up over the horizon. So I thought that'd be quite nice. Now, I've not actually flown this mod before, so this could be quite interesting. Someone who's actually flown a Cessna 152 in real life, this could actually be quite interesting for me. So I'm going to get rid of the yoke just to start with, and we're going to run through the checklist. Now, we'll put on the screen on top of the sim the checklist I'm reading from. I'll photocopy it so you guys can run along through the checklist with me. There is an inbuilt one in the sim, but I like to use the one that I use in real life. It just adds a little bit more realism to the whole thing. So ideally, you start with your seat to make sure it is adjusted and secured. Now, obviously, we can't control that in the sim, so I'm not too worried. Hello there. Who invited you? Should we get rid of her? Because I don't want her making me feel uncomfortable for the whole flight. Thank you. Okay, or I just get rid of that altogether. Does that get rid of her? No, it doesn't. Okay, that's fine. We'll add a bit of weight back in then just to simulate the pilots. Fuel is good as well. Hatches and harnesses, obviously, the hatches is currently open, so we're going to go ahead and close that now. Harnesses, well, yeah, we can't exactly put them on either. It's going to be quite nippy, so we'll leave the window closed. I think it's probably for the best. Now, parking brake is on and confirmed, as you can see just there. Radios and avionics should all be off, so we're just going to flick them to the off position. No idea if these are the on-off switches, but we're about to find out. Okay, instruments, undamaged, liable, and secure. They all look pretty good to me. I'm being honest, the clock's working, so that's a good start. Obviously, none of the others we're going to see if they work until, obviously, we get running. Flying controls, full free movement in the correct sense, so we can just sort of give it a bit of a... Give it a move around the box, if you like. All looks well. If you want as well, you can also look out on the wing while you do said movements, just to make sure one goes up, one goes down. We can't really see, but you can just see it in the background of her there. And if we swing it around to the back, we can see a stab moving up and down, and then the rudders moving left and right. So we're all good on that front. That all seems to be working. Trim sets to the neutral position, which it should well be. It looks pretty neutral to me. If I go back into... Yeah, that's just below takeoff position, so we're fine. Right, the cabin heat needs to be off, set closed, which, if I remember rightly, cabin heat is there, which is all good. We don't have to worry too much about that. Mixture, full and free movement, and then we need to set it to rich. So that moves, and then that can reset to rich. Throttle nuts, we can't actually adjust in the sim, but in real life, this little knot you can see just here, you would tighten that up so that the throttle doesn't move by itself once the engine is running and vibrating the whole cockpit, but we can't simulate that. But the throttle is 3 incorrect. I'll just try my throttle arm next to me here, and that is all good. Okay, so you would set it loose ideally for engine start, but it's full and free movement. We're going to set it to about a quarter, just for me to get the engine started. Carburetor heat, full and free movement, set cold. So that's hot, that's cold. It moves perfectly fine, so we're going to leave it on cold. Magnetos are currently set to off. Master switch can go on. There we go. That's firing up. You can hear all the gyros and stuff start to whirl up. Circuit breakers and fuses, as you can see, they're all in. No discrepancies with any of them. Oh, we have an autopilot panel installed. Now that's fancy. Fuel cock is checked on. So this little cock here. Now, if you don't spot this when you're flying the Cessna 152, you are not going to get very far. That needs to be down in the flush position, and it's part of your Frida checks, which I'll run through as we get airborne and get flying the aeroplane. Right, beacon light can then come on, so we're also going to turn our nav lights on just to, people can see us. And it's a bit chilly, we're going to put the pitot heater on as well. Primer, right, the aircraft hasn't been flown today, and it's pretty nippy out, so we're going to put 3 squirts in. There's 3. So the next thing you want to do is look out around the aircraft. You want to make sure there's nobody around you that's going to walk into your prop once you start it up. And it doesn't look very likely from where we are. Unless this person's to jump out and run into the prop, I can't see that being an issue. At which point you'd open the window out and you'd shout clear prop, which that's me done for the day. I'm not going to scream on top of my lungs because then you're going to all become deaf. So at this point you want to put the key in, which already is, and you want to operate the starter. Ooh. Oh, there we go. She did start. We're all good. Right, now the trick is you want to idle the power at 1,000 RPM. So we just bring that power back until we reach 1,000 RPM. In case you're wondering where I'm looking right here for the RPM gauge. That's about 1,000, so I'm pretty happy with that. So we can reset the view back to the beginning. Right, that's the internal and starting checklist completed, so we can run the after start checklist. So RPM, this says set to 1200. My instructor has always told me set to 1,000 RPM, so I'm going to leave it running at 1,000 because it's what I'm used to. Oil pressure rising and in the green arc, so the oil pressure, as you can see, is just down here. We'll zoom in on it to make life easier. There's your oil pressure gauge. That is rising because it would have been down here otherwise, so that needs to be in the green band before we can start. It needs to rise to the green arc within 30 seconds, if not immediately shut down the aircraft. So we've got another about 20 seconds to go if that's not in the green arc. Ideally, we should have to shut down. I'm not going to because the engine is not going to explode. Start warning light is indeed out. We haven't got to worry about that. We're all good on that front. Ammeter, make sure that is positively charging, which if you look, it's very hard to see, but it would be just slightly to the right of a 0. In old Cessnas, it is very rare that you'll find one that actually works properly, as I found out during my lessons. Suction, registering correctly, so the suction gauge is just here in the green. That's all we need to know. If it's in the green, it means it's good. We're happy. Magnetos, we need to check for a dead cut, so we're going to check left mag. All good. Back to both. Check the right mag. All good. Back to both. Flaps up in stages. So the flaps are currently already up. So what we'll do is we're going to check them down in stages, then we'll re-raise them. So we'll go down to 10 degrees. Down on the left. Down on the right. 20 degrees. Down on the left. Down on the right. And 30 degrees. Down on the left. And down on the right. So we can now retract them in stages. So we go up to 20. All good on the left and the right. Up to 10. All good on the left and the right. And then flaps fully up. We're not going to use flaps for departure because the runway is more than long enough for what we need. At which point you would set your instruments as required, and then you chill in your radio, and then you do your lookout, and you ask taxi clearance. Now I'm not going to do any of that because the video is going to be complicated enough as it is. However, we will turn the radios on. We'll turn the transponder on. And I think it's 1200 in America for VFR. Was it 2000? I can never remember. I think it's 12. It's got to be 2000, isn't it? Let's try it. 12,000, and we'll set on out, which is normally the standard procedure we follow. Now then, we're all good. We're pretty much in the green. The oil pressure's nearly there. I mean, if it was sitting at 1200 RPM, it probably would have gone up a little bit quicker, but we're not. We're sitting at 1000 RPM, so that's fine. Taxi light can go on now. Transponder is set. So let's taxi out to the runway. So first thing you want to do is idle the power. Release the parking brake, and then you can regate the power and start taxiing. Now I'm going to set the local QFE here, which I don't actually know off the top of my head. We're just going to reset the altimeter to be ground level, which normally is the QFE. So you've got two types of pressure setting. So in the UK and Europe, we use QFE and QNH. QFE is the altitude above ground level, and the QNH is the local air pressure. Now, I won't go into too much detail explaining the two. There's plenty of videos on YouTube that can explain that too for you. But normally, when you want to fly circuits, you want to fly off the QFE, and when you're just doing a local flight, then you'd fly off of the QNH. In America, they use the altimeter. So I'm not entirely sure how it works to 100% over in America, but that's as much as I can really tell you from what I know off the top of my head. Like, I mean, I'm no means a professional pilot. You know, I'm just here sharing my experiences with you. I'm a bit annoyed that there's a fire engine in front of us. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of hoping he's going to get moving because I need to do my run up before departure. Do you know what? Let's just we need to face into wind. So which way is the wind going? If this woman get out of the way, I can see the windsock. So we need to do a U-turn. So what we'll do is we'll come over to the left here and we'll do a UE. And then we'll do our run-up checks. Now, you would ideally do your taxi checks. And when you're turning left, you're looking for 3 gauges to move. You're looking for this one. Sorry, the HSI, turn coordinator, and make sure the artificial horizon's not moving, which it isn't. So we're going to park it up about there. And we're going to set the parking brake and reset 1000 RPM. Sorry, I'm a little bit under the weather, so it's a bit... trying to remember things is causing me a lot of problems right now. Right. Brakes are good, rudder is all good, we're turning, and all the gauges were turning as we were doing our left and right turns. Right. Power checks. We're parked into wind, parking brake on, oil is within limits. Right. We've already checked the mags, so we're going to set 1700 RPM. Right, there's 1700 RPM set. Brakes are holding. So, carburetor heat, we're going to set to hot. There goes the drop. You can just slightly see the RPM gauge drop. That can go back to cold. Now we're going to check the left and right mags, and we're looking for a drop of about 50 RPM. So, left mag. There's the drop. Back to both. Flicking to the right mag. There's the drop. Back to both. Suction in between 3 and 5, it is on 5. Ammeter is charging. You can just see it to the right hand side of that 0 there. All temps pressures are just about now within limits. We can idle the RPM and see where it idles. Should be between 5 and 700 RPM when it idles. about 700, so we'll reset to 1000 RPM. Okay, that's the power checks done. So, pre-takeoff checks, vital actions. Trim should be in the takeoff position. Just give it a little bit more forward trimming and adjust that as and when we're in the air. Throttle friction nut, obviously we can't check because it's not modelled. Mixture is set full rich. Mags are on. And master switches are on. Primer is in and locked. Fuel is on, which we check by checking that fuel cock. And sufficient, we've got plenty of fuel in both tanks. Flaps as required, we're going flaps up for departure. Instruments and DI, so you check the compass. Compass heading is 240. You can align that up with this, so about 240. There you go. Compass and DI are aligned. And engine temperatures and pressures are all good. Now you check hatches and harnesses, which we can't do, but the doors and windows are closed and secure both sides. Transponder is set on out, and we can put the strobes and the landing lights on now as well. That said, we can on the power, release the brakes, and we can go flying. Now we're going to fly a circuit pretty much straight away. The plan of action here is we're going to take off, fly runway heading, then we'll do our crosswind leg, turn downwind, turn base, and then we'll just do a couple of circuits, and we'll do touch and goes off of each circuit. This is the runway of choice for me today. Whether or not it's an active runway, I couldn't tell you, but this looks like it could be runway 27 potentially. Actually, should I double check this is an active runway before I do anything? Runway 23. It looks reasonably active to me. Or shall we play it safe? Let's play it safe and take 27. Why not? Let's just taxi forward a bit more. Let's use the biggest runway just because you get more, more time to build up speed, and it just less chances of incidents happening then, isn't there? And it's probably, to be honest, it suits the wind a little bit better as well. Right, runway 27 is verified. Everything is good to go. Okay, let's bring the power in. Now you're looking for 55 knot rotation speed. And you want to climb at 60. 55 knots, rotate. And then we're looking for 60 knots on the climb. So you want to pitch to maintain 60 knots. Nice view of the airfield as we depart here. Climbing for 60 knots, says 300 feet. At which point you would retract your flaps. I'm not too worried about that because we haven't got any flaps down at the moment. So we're a little bit slow, pitch the nose forward just a smidgen, and then you want to trim. Now the key to this is power attitude trim, PAT. Take your power, maintain the attitude, and trim to hold it there. And that's the same for when you're starting a climb, ending a climb, starting a descent or ending a descent. Always follow power attitude trim. Now we're going to aim for about 1,000 feet here. So I think we're pretty clear of the airfield now. If I do just a little U-turn here so I can see what I'm looking at. Given the fact that it's a big airport, I'm used to flying out of grass strips. We're going to just extend our upwind a little bit here. There's 1,000 feet. We're going to level the nose. And we're going to try and trim the aircraft to hold 1,000 feet best as possible. And now the last thing you want to do is redline the engine of the airplane. So you want to pull the power back now. To about there. And there you go, you're hunky-dory. We're all airborne. So now it's probably a good time to start our crosswind leg. So we're going to make sure we're clear on the left, clear on the right, and we're going to start doing a slight 10 degree at most right hand turn. until we head to the lake. That's what I'm going to use as my visual reference point for the circuit today. Let's roll wings level. I should be pretty much crosswind. Yeah. We're a little bit high, so I'm just going to drop a little bit of altitude. Now we're in the air, and many things we need to worry about. So, one thing you want to always be checking is your free to check. Obviously, you've got your pre-landing checks, which is bumpy, which I can run you through what that means in a second. You always want the free to checks as well. Free to checks, you know, you do mostly on a local flight more than on circuits. Normally, I never mind doing circuits. I never do it free to check as such. I'll do it after sort of 4 or 5 circuits, but normally I won't do a free. I'll just do the pre-landing checks because they're similar things. But just to let you know what a free to check is, I'll put it on the screen. You've got fuel, so you check that it's on and sufficient. And by checking it's on and sufficient, you make sure that fuel cock is in the down position, and you make sure your gauges are indicating with plenty of fuel remaining. Radios, make sure they're tuned, identified, and you want to obtain the ATIS or joining instructions if you haven't already. Engine, you want to check T's and P's, temperatures and pressures, make sure they are in the green, which they would normally be. You want to make sure your DI and compass are aligned, which 9 times out of 10 they tend to slip a little bit, so you want to just realign them. Then you want to make sure that your altimeter is set to the QNH or QFE, or if you're in America, altimeter as required. Well, I'm just going to start our downwind now. I'll see if I can remember how to fly and approach in a 152 here. We're a little bit high, so that'll all play into it. So we're going to turn right now, heading pretty much directly east. That should give us a nice parallel circuit, which it does. We're quite wide, but that's fine. Gives us more time to kill the power on the downwind leg. Right, now, we want to do our pre-landing checks. Now, this is something so we're going to put on the screen for you to encounter. So you want to start with brakes. So they're off, which they are. Feet are not on the pedals. Undercarriage is obviously it's fixed, so we haven't got about that. Mixture is set full rich, which as you be confirmed, you can see there. Mixture is set to full rich. Flaps are currently up. Altimeter is set to the local QFE, which I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head. Instruments, the altimeter is set like we've just discovered, and the compass and DRI aligned. Engine instruments are all good. And carb heat, we do a quick check for the carb heat. So we pull that back. We're all good, we can put it back to cold again. And there you go, hatches and harnesses are all good as well, because obviously we can't monitor them. So that's the pre-landing checks completed. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. Now, unfortunately, I can't see because my co-pilot's head's in the way. But the runway is pretty much parallel to where we are. So once we get over the lake, that'll probably be a good time to start turning base. As soon as we've made that turn to base, we want to kill the power. Well, you don't want to kill it, you want to put it back to about 1500, I think, roughly. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a long time since I've flown on 152 with my instructor. I'm pretty sure you pull the power back to 1500 RPM, and of a little bit more if you need it. And you just hold the nose back until you maintain 70 knots. At which point, when you get first stage of flap, you can speak out to 60 knots, and you basically just keep pitching for 60 knots the whole time. So we're going to try that method, and we're going to see how we get on. The sun has now pretty much come up, and it's a beautiful day here. I think it's in the state of Wisconsin, if I'm correct. If I'm not correct, please don't shout at me in the comments. But it is an absolutely lovely day, and it's a lovely location to be flying out of. I'd say I'm pretty happy we're good for our base leg now, so we're going to do a right-hand turn, nice and gradual. Maintaining our height, it wouldn't hurt if we lost a little bit because we're actually quite high for a circuit. Want to be heading roughly south for these circuits. Or for this part of the circuit, should I say, sorry. Okay, as we're rolling out, we're going to bring the power back. We're going to roll out. Now, when you bring the power back, you also need to pull the carb heat out, because the engine's not running as a high RPM, and you're at risk of getting ice build up in the carbs. So you leave that on, and you leave that on for the whole descent and landing. So we want to keep holding it back, holding it back. And as soon as you get in that white arc, which is now, we can add the first stage of flaps, which is travelling on the left, travelling on the right, and it's down on the left and on the right. Looking for about 70 knots. There it is. Now we can let the aircraft go, and we want to trim to maintain 70 knots. So we can actually start a shallow turn to finals now. Now the thing is, we're a little bit high and we're a little bit fast. So what we're going to bring the power back, so you adjust your height with speed and speed with attitude. Now it does sound a bit mismatched, but trust me, I thought that at first. It works. I bring my power back and I still have to pitch for 70 knots. My rate of attack will be greater. I'm going to put a second stage of flaps in. Now for a touch and go, you only want to use flaps 2. So that has given me a lot more drag straight away. So if I now pitch down for 70 knots, the picture I want to see in my vision at all times is the runway threshold with the numbers and a little bit more. You never want to not see anything else. You always want to see the whole runway from start to finish in your picture if you can. That's how I've been taught. So we're still a little bit fast here, so we're going to bring the power back just a little bit more. Just under 1500 RPM now, it's just the norm. And we're at 70 knots. Now I'm looking for about 65 if I can. So I'm going to pull the power back a little bit more. And that's the ideal picture you want to look at. Now this is all going to happen a little bit quickly now. So once we've hit the deck, the flaps go completely up. Carb heat goes in. You start from left to right. Carb heat in, flaps up, full power. And then we're going to go around and we're going to do this whole thing again. So we're still really fast. So what am I actually going to do? I can probably get away with idling the power now whilst maintaining this picture. So I'm basically effectively gliding the aircraft in, which is probably a better case scenario than most. You'd rather be too high and have the option to glide in than too low, your engine quits and you're going for a drink in the sea. But there's 60. We can bring a little bit more power back now. Keeping that picture in. .27 is verified. Coming over the numbers, we can pull the power back now. And theoretically just let it stall onto the ground. Hold it off, hold it off, hold it off. Okay, so we can go carb heat, flaps up, full power. There you go, looking for 55 knots. It's going to creep up pretty quickly. There's 55, or rotate. And then climbing away at 60. Now, I'm not going to be perfect on my numbers because, one, this is a sim, and two, it's been a long time since I've flown this in real life. But I'm trying my best to be as accurate as I can with this. After all, it's just a bit of fun, so... I think what we'll do one more touch and go, and then we're going to land off the third one because the video's getting on for half an hour as it is already. But it has been fun, and hopefully it's been instructional for you guys. It gives you just a bit of a helping hand of learning to fly the Cessna 152. But if I were you, definitely recommend getting the JPL mod. I'll put a link to it in the video description. It is a free mod, and I can definitely notice a difference in how the 152 performs. Okay, coming up to 1,000 feet, we can level out the aeroplane now. Again, we'll hold it at 1,000 feet, and then as the speed picks up, we'll have to retrim the aircraft. You don't want to be sitting at 25,000 RPM for too long. So once that speed builds up just over 90, then you can start putting your power back, maintain 24-ish, 100 RPM, and then we'll trim the airplane to maintain 1,000. The issue with the last circuit is I climbed a bit too high. You need to be on top of that altitude, especially where I fly from. If you break the 1,000-foot limit, then you are entering controlled airspace and you're going to get a colossal bollocking from someone. So yeah, you don't want to be doing that. But the aircraft's trimmed, so we're all good. Now let's just do a quick look behind and see where we're at in terms of the airport. We'll make this one a bit of a tighter circuit. We'll speed through this one a little bit more. So we'll come to the right now. I want to head west, or sorry, head north. Picking up a bit of altitude again, so just going to descend a little bit. I want to try and stick at 1,000 feet for the circuit if I can. Rolling out on north. Airfield should be just off to the right there, which it is. Sun glare is making it a little bit hard to see, but never the matter. And then once we turn downwind again, we're going to do our bumpy C checks, if you like, the pre-landing checks. Does take a little while to learn, and there are quite a lot to go through. I mean, it took me about a week just to learn Frida off the top of my head, but once you get used to flying it, it comes quite naturally to you. It's always a good rhythm to get into as well, so I definitely recommend learning it. Like I say, I'll put a link to where you can buy the checklist I've got in the description below. It is a British checklist from Pooley's. I think Pooley's is British, it might be American, don't quote me on that. Where you can buy it, but I'll also put just screenshots over the top of the screen of what I'm reading and when, just so you guys can read along with me. And you can use this video for future reference if you need to and you want to learn how to fly circuits. I think that's probably a good place to call downwind now. We're at a good speed, good height. So we're going to come to the right. Looking for heading of east roughly, which is about there. We can roll out now. Right, brakes are off, undercarriage is down and fixed. Fuel is on and sufficient. Flaps are up. Instruments altimeter is set and the DI and compass are aligned. We'll do a carb heat check. All good. Back to cold, and hatches and arches are secured and locked. Just going to gain a little bit of extra height here because we've actually lost a little bit now, but that's not a problem. Airfield out to the right hand side. Not as tight a circuit as I was hoping, but it's still pretty good. There we go, 1,000 feet. We can try and hold it there now. So we're going to retrim the aircraft to maintain 1,000. Now the trick with trimming is, if you've done it right, if I let go of the stick, the aircraft will sit and fly straight. Makes life so much simpler. There's some big houses out here. Wow. Now, where's this runway? So there's the runway, so yeah, I don't want to turn too late. We'll see what we can work out. I fiddled with the game sound a little bit, so it is a little bit louder. Hopefully you can still hear me and the sound isn't too loud in the background. Right, let's start our turn now. Want to be heading south, and once we're rolling out we can start killing the power so we can maintain 70 knots. Right, so there comes the power. I'm going to bring it back to a little bit less now. I'm going to bring it back to about 1800 RPM. Now the trick is to hold that nose to bleed that speed. Hold that nose, hold that nose. Entering the right arc, flap 1 and flap 10 degrees. Just to help inflict that. There's 70 knots. We can pitch the nose forward. Pitch the nose to maintain 70, and we can then trim. Airfield's coming into sight. We're all good. One thing I completely forgot was the carpet. We'll pull it out now. Better late than never. But it's always good to admit your mistakes and acknowledge that you've made them whenever you make one, especially when you're flying in real life and you're still training. It's very good to acknowledge your mistakes. I got a good look at the picture. We're probably right on profile actually here. But we'll start a gradual turn in now to the runway. Second stage of flap can come in now just to give us a little bit of extra drag. Bring that power back a little bit more. Just because we're a little bit high. So what you need to note from this is if I was holding 1800 RPM on that base leg and then angling my aircraft at 70 knots and I was coming in too high, then I need to be pulling less RPM off on the base leg. That's fine. We're going to idle the power now just to help bring it over the threshold. We're about 70-ish knots and we're completely idle on the power. So we can probably get away with idling it the whole way in, to be honest. We'll just pull it back and we'll glide it in from here. Plenty of runway. Try and aim for that orange dot. Just hold off that nose. There we go. Car peak can go in. Flaps can go up. Full power. $50, $55, rotate. 60. And pigeon for 60. There we go, that's the last touch and go done. I think that was quite successful. We're now going to make it a really tight circuit now, just so I can but I don't make the video too long because YouTube will hate me if I don't upload a video that's long. Get to 500 feet and we'll start our right hand turn out on the crosswind leg. 500 feet turning. Only a light turn when you're climbing at 60 knots because the last thing you want to do is stall the aircraft and put it into a spin this low. I should gain a bit of speed there, but it's not an issue. We're levelling out at 1,000 feet now anyway. Let the aircraft speed up. And pull that power back a little bit so we're not overspeeding in the engine. When's a good time to start this downwind leg? Do you know what? Let's get away with it now. I reckon we can do this. I'm going to try 1500 RPM on this next attempt. Obviously I'm landing off this one anyway, but same procedure applies. Oh, lovely bit of sun glare there. We're a little bit higher anyway. Let's just kill a little bit of power and just drop the altitude down a little bit. Right, brakes off, undercarriage down and locked. Obviously it can't be any other way. Mixture is set full rich. Fuel is on and sufficient. Flaps are up. Altimeter is set. Instruments, compass and DIR are aligned. And carb heat check. All good. And hatches and arches are all good. There's a few more bits to that checklist, but we're not going to worry about them because they're not on my club's checklist. I'm not too worried by them. Right, let's start turning base. The circuits have actually worked out quite well by being literally north, east, south and west. It does make life a lot easier. Otherwise you've got to look for visual reference points, which does make life a little bit harder. Right. Carb heat out. Power coming back. In the first arc, first stage of flap. There's 70 knots. Drop the nose to maintain. Airfield's in sight, so we are really high. So we'll do second stage of flap almost straight away. Starting to turn to finals. Now we can use full flap on this approach because we are landing. But even when I've flown this on a landing, I've never used full flap. I only ever used flap 20 degree. Never used the full 30. Flap full, just to help slow us down that little bit more. And that's the picture you want every time. Idle the power, bring it down slowly and gently. Hold the nose off. Hold the nose off. Right on the orange dot. There you go. And there we have it. 2 touch and goes and a landing completed at Chaos. In the Cessna 152 from JPL Designs. Lovely aeroplane to fly, really enjoyed it. Now, you would, in this scenario, come to a stop off the runway and do an after landing check. But we'll do it for good spirits, because it's all good. And then we'll park up one of the hangars, because why not? A bit of fun in it. Alright, set parking brake, set 1000 RPM. After landing checks, carburetor heat, cold. Flaps up in increments, so we'll go up 1, 2, 3. Up on both sides. 12 friction nut, obviously we can't adjust, and nav aids all essential off, and trim set to neutral. We can put the trim back in the neutral position, and we can turn. We'll leave all the nav aids on, but that can go on to standby because we're on the ground currently. So we can release the parking brakes and carry our taxi on. Let's park between one of the hangars here. Simulate we're going to go back into our little hangar. Right, if we stop it here then. And then we'll do our shutdown checks and everything here. Right, parking brake set, reset 1000 RPM. Right, shutdown checklist, location, not obstructing into wind. Not really into wind, but we're not obstructing anything. Nozzle steering is straight. Right, we'll go RPM 1200 for 30 seconds, which it is, just to keep the checklist that I've got in front of me happy. Mags, check for dead cut. So come back down here. We're going to check the left mag. All good. Back to both. Right mag. All good. Back to both. Radio nav aids check off. Goodbye. You can go off. You can go off, and then we'll turn off the transponder. Throttle close, and then mixture idle cut off, i.e. fully lean. And hopefully the engine should come to a complete stop. And there you go. And that's pretty much it. After engine stops, mags off. Now I feel like I turned the battery master off. It's going to give me that splash screen that nobody likes. So I'm going to leave the battery master on for a second. At which point you turn the fuel cock off. Like that. And then you put your control lock in and various other things. And obviously you turn off the master switch. Which I'm not going to do at the moment because I don't want that horrible splash screen coming up and ruining my day. Oh, I've got to turn all the lights off. Ah, do you know what? Let's just do it. There we go. All done. Circuits have been completed. We're all good to go. And my passenger who's joined me can go and be sick in the toilets if that's what she needs to do. All in all, guys, thank you very much for joining me today on today's flight of circuits in the beautiful November 22318 or Cessna 152. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. And it's been a bit of a long one today. It's been nearly 50 minutes long. But I hope you have enjoyed it. And I hope you have enjoyed some tips from me and enjoyed the aircraft, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. But for now, that's everything I've got to say. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you on the next video. Happy flying.